Football is just not the same as it used to be. We used to actually wonder how different teams would match up in Europe if they ever played against each other. We went from Rafa Benitez and Jose Mourinho constantly firing shots at each other to Klopp and Guardiola essentially being besties, and nowadays each and every goal not scored directly from a penalty has become a mini investigation. Okay, maybe I exaggerated just a little bit, but there's something that has to be said for how football today just seems so bland and predictable, almost to the point of feeling robotic and even somewhat scripted. Now, I do understand that, as a sport that has existed for almost 1.5 centuries, natural cycles of ebbs and flows are to be expected, but with the rise of super clubs and the possibility of a European Super League in the near future, we might see the sport become something we never really imagined. But things didn't seem so bleak just a decade ago. Guardiola was revolutionizing football with his Barcelona side, Chelsea was on the brink of breaking their Champions League duck, and the debate about the best player in the world was a lot more nuanced. Let me take you back to an era that stretches back even further and, in my opinion, marks a bona fide golden era in recent football history. The 2000s was an era in which the sport managed to capitalize on the widespread refinements that came about in the 90s, the emergence of some of the game's greatest players around the same period, and the general free-for-all nature that preceded the introduction of VAR. Nostalgia aside, the 2000s represent a time when football just had a bit of a poetic touch to it.
Mella, lovely cushioned header, but Gerrard! Oh, you beauty!
Breaks here for Joe Cole. Oh, brilliant! Just brilliant!
But it's Messi. It's Iniesta!
Ronaldinho e Ibra hanno creato un'occasione, poi Pirlo! Rete!
Remember this? Do you remember when players would actually have a quick look up at goal to see where the keeper was and take a shot from outside the box? Well, before the most recent wave in sports science concluded that the statistical probability of scoring from outside the box was so low that it just wasn't worth it, it wasn't uncommon to see a player try to add a different dimension to the game and just go for goal from range on the off chance that he could catch the keeper sleeping. The key word here is different. Football today is way too predictable in the sense that you know most teams are going to move the ball to the wings and cross into the box, or if the team is sitting back, they're going to try a ball over the top and run in behind. Every single time. It's not just long-range shots that have fallen victim to the implementation of data. The X factor has been almost completely eliminated. Do you think a player today would attempt this shot with mountains of data that say that they're just wasting possession? Now obviously we have to remember that the man who scored that goal is legitimately one of the all-time greats and only players of a certain ability would even think to try. What Thierry Henry had, in addition to his talent, was plenty of audacity and even more personality. These are qualities that have basically been eliminated out of the modern game, and I really don't know why. Looking through the decade, you had Henry, Zidane, Totti, Puyol, Cannavaro, Gerrard, Lampard, Ronaldinho, and Raul, to name just a few players. What each of these players may have lacked in ingenuity, they made up in character 10 times more, and vice versa. There was a time when you could look to a certain player before a game with the confidence that their team's performance would rest almost solely on their shoulders. Look at any of the big names around today that started their careers after about 2012 and tell me how many are looked at with the same level of reverence and expectation as the players I just mentioned. Individuality has pretty much been phased out, and for better or for worse, today's game puts the team far and above any one player. You're probably not going to see one-on-one battles like Andrea Pirlo versus Park Ji-sung anymore, as man marking has gradually disappeared in favor of zonal marking. The classic number 10 position has also practically been eradicated, with the use of hybrid box-to-box midfielders and inverted wingers becoming more and more common. And even with the skillful players that are around today, it's rare that you see them ignore the game plan just a bit and do something truly out of the ordinary. The game has become a lot more calculated and efficient at the expense of the randomness and mystery that existed just a decade ago. A large part of the mystery has also been lost as becoming successful has become more and more dependent on money. I'm not going to pretend like money hasn't always existed, but it's absolutely insane just how easy it is to predict who's going to win a competition just based on the size of a team's wage bill. In Spain and France, Barcelona and PSG have dominated for the last 10 years. Bayern have won 8 Bundesligas in a row, while Juventus have won 9 titles in a row. And in England, Man City are beginning to create a monopoly over the Premier League. The same thing has happened in Europe too. Every year we know the exact same 5 or 6 teams that are definitely going to be in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and the 1 or 2 teams who are definitely going to win the Europa League. Before a ridiculous cash injection altered the landscape forever, you still had the traditional favorites, but the conditions for success were a lot less straightforward. The Premier League had a genuine top 4 that could alternate positions year on year. 4 different teams won La Liga during the 2000s, while Serie A and Bundesliga had 5 different champions. In the Champions League, there were 7 unique champions from 5 countries, while there were 10 different winners in the UEFA Cup, with those champions coming from 7 different countries. As the years go by and the Super League develops into more and more of a reality, the chances that we see a dark horse break through the monopoly of success and come out on top become exponentially lower and lower. Honestly, while there's a number of things that I could go on and on about, the matter of the fact is that football has changed. The game is heading in a completely new direction, and now, with the introduction of VAR, it might be a completely different entity 20 or 30 years from now. Regardless of how football does continue to evolve, I'm glad I was able to live through a time when things were so much more magical and the element of chance was actually a force to be reckoned with. For that, I always look at the 2000s with great admiration as the era that got away.